The morning after was quiet. Not silent, not empty. Just quiet in the kind of way that lets your heart hear itself. The city was already moving again. Cars, footsteps, horns. But inside the small bookstore, time was still walking slow. Slow like an old man crossing a wooden bridge. Careful, thoughtful, the young woman had returned. She hadn't planned to. She thought one visit was enough. But something in her chest told her the story wasn't finished. She came back without calling, without asking. She just showed up with the same paper bag in her hand. This time, it held 2 slices of cake. The old man was already there. Same seat, same coat. When he saw her walk through the door, he didn't speak right away. He just moved the book he still hadn't read and pointed gently to the chair across from him. She sat down. Her eyes said thank you. Her hand said, I still don't understand. I thought about what you said all night, she whispered. I couldn't sleep. The old man nodded. Stories do that, especially the quiet ones. She took out the cake, set it between them. You said he was always there, she began, but didn't he tell anyone? Not even later? He's famous now. People write stories about less than that. The old man smiled. It's not sad, not bitter, just soft. Because he didn't come to be seen, he came to see. She blinked. Most people, he said slowly, go somewhere to be noticed. They want credit, attention, even if they mean well. But he wasn't like that, not even then. The woman looked down, her voice barely a breath. I wish more people were like that. The old man sipped his tea. Lukewarm now. So do I. Then, after a long pause, he leaned forward and said something unexpected. There's more. Her eyes lifted. Wide. Hopeful. More? Yes, he said. That wasn't the last time I saw him. The wind outside picked up. Soft gust, pressed against the bookstore windows. Leaves danced by like they were listening to. 2 years later, he began. I wasn't at the hospital anymore. I had moved on. Different job. Different city. I was working at a small theater in Vancouver. I cleaned after shows, polished floors, fixed seats. Again, I stayed invisible. His voice deepened with memory. One night, the lights were low. The crowd was gone. I saw someone sitting alone in the front row. Just sitting. No phone, no notebook, just staring at the empty stage. The woman whispered him. The old man nodded. Yes. Older now. Much, but you could see something. Had changed. There was weight behind his eyes. Like he had started carrying something bigger than grief. Continued. I walked over to clean. I didn't expect him to notice. But he looked up, and he remembered me. Her hand froze. He did. Yes, he said. Smiled. Said, you're the janitor from the hospital? The woman stared. Silent. I said, yes, the old man continued. And he said, thank you. Just that. And then he reached into his coat and handed me something. A small card. Handwritten. It said, keep showing up, even when no one claps. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I still have that card, he said. It's in my coat pocket. I carry it everywhere. That's ... She tried to speak. Words failed. That's who he is, the old man said. Not the actor, not the icon, the person. She looked at him for a long time. Did he ever come back? The old man shook his head. Not to me. But sometimes I see stories, hear things. The motorcycle he fixed for a stranger. The crew members he bought gifts for, the quiet donations, the long conversations with no cameras. I hear it, and I know. He's still showing up, even when no one claps. The woman exhaled like something had just left her chest. A weight. A doubt. A fear. My brother died last year, she said suddenly. He was 26. Car accident. Couldn't say goodbye. I didn't even get to the hospital in time. Her voice broke. After that, she said, I stopped. Talking to people, I stopped everything. The only thing that helped was watching this old interview with Keanu, who was talking about loss, how grief never leaves, how it just becomes part of who we are. And when he said that, It was the first time I didn't feel alone. The old man listened. No words. His presence. I started writing letters to him, she said. Never sent them. Just wrote them. Like I was telling my brother what I couldn't say. She opened her bag again, pulled out a worn notebook, edges torn, pages full. This is the last one, she said. I was going to leave it with the cake. The old man reached across the table, not to take it, just to place his hand gently over hers. Then maybe, he said, you should read it, out loud, right here. Her eyes filled, but she nodded, and she opened the notebook. Her voice was shaky, then steady. She read slowly, carefully, every line a piece of her that had been trapped in silence. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. But it was real, and when she finished, the old man said only one thing. Your brother would have been proud of you. And in that bookstore, on a quiet street, with cake between them and the rain still whispering at the windows, something sacred happened. She smiled, not because the pain was gone, but because someone had helped her carry it. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. That afternoon, the bookstore felt different. The air was still quiet, still soft, but there was something else now, something warmer. Not just from the lamps or the tea, but from the space between two people who had shared something heavy and chosen not to run away from it. The young woman stayed longer this time. She didn't check her phone, didn't glance at the clock. For the first time in months, she didn't feel the urge to be somewhere else. She just sat, present, like the boy in the hospital once had. The old man leaned back in his chair. The notebook lay closed beside the paper bag, now empty, except for crumbs. You know? Why? He said slowly. I once asked him a question. She looked up. Keanu. He nodded back at the theater. When he gave me that card, I asked him why. He sat alone so much. Why he didn't talk more. What did he say? She asked. The old man smiled. He said because most of the loudest people never say anything real. Most of the real things we say are quiet. Her eyes lowered. That sounds like him. He nodded again. I didn't understand it back then. I do now. They sat in silence for a while. Not an awkward one. Not empty. A kind of silence that lets two souls breathe together. Like the stillness before a storm, or the peace after one. Then the old man said something she didn't expect. I lied. Her head tilted. What? He looked at her with soft eyes. It's not guilty, not ashamed. It's just honest. I said he never came. Back, he explained. But that wasn't true. She leaned forward, breath caught. 2 years ago, he began. I was in New York, visiting my niece. She teaches at a school in Brooklyn. Small one, not much funding. I went to help clean. Up after a fundraiser. And that's when I saw him again. Her heart beat faster. He was there, the old man said, standing in the back. No camera, no spotlight. He was holding a box of books. Just books. Children's stories, science books, old novels. He had donated all of them. The young woman couldn't believe it. No one even knew it was him, the old man said, shaking his head. He wore a cap. Old jacket, he blended in. And when I walked past, he looked up and he smiled. Same smile, same eyes. She whispered, Did you talk? He nodded. Not much. He said, They need stories. The good kind. The kind that stay. Then he left. Her eyes filled again. He's always giving, she said. The old man nodded, and never asking for anything back. They sat for a moment. Then she asked the question that had been sitting inside her from the beginning. Why are you telling me all this? He didn't answer right away. Then softly, because I think you're one of the people who'll carry it the right way. She froze, her throat closed. She'd never thought of herself like that, like someone who could carry stories. Like someone who mattered that much, he continued. There's something else too. She looked at him, waiting. He once told me, the old man said slowly, that kindness isn't a performance. He reached into his coat, pulled out a small photo. It was old, grainy, two people sitting in a hospital room. One was clearly a young Keanu, thinner, eyes tired, but the same posture, the same presence. Beside him, a woman, pale, fragile, asleep, his hand holding hers. "I've kept this for decades," he said, "but I think it belongs to someone else." Now he handed it to her. Her fingers trembled. "Are you sure?" Smiled. "It's time the world sees the part of him that fame never touched." She held the photo like it was glass, like it was a key to something hidden. "But how?" she asked. "How do you share a story this quiet in a world that's so loud?" He looked at her with deep, kind eyes. "You start by whispering," he said, "and if it's real, the right hearts will hear it." A few moments passed. Then she stood up. "Where are you going?" he asked. She held up the photo. "To start whispering." He nodded once, firm, proud. As she stepped toward the door, he added one more thing. "He never forgot her, you know?" Woman paused, turned back. "Every year on her birthday," he said, "he still visits that hospital, brings flowers. He doesn't stay long, just leaves them on the windowsill and walks away. Does it without anyone seeing. But the nurses still remember. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Some truths don't require words outside." The clouds were parting. For the first time in days, the sun began to break through, and with it, a story that had waited years to be told was finally finding its way into the light. The photo felt warm in her hand, even though the paper was old. It had a weight to it that wasn't just from time. It was the kind of photo you didn't share with the world, not because it was secret, but because it meant something too deep to explain. She walked out of the bookstore, holding it close. Her steps were slow at first, thoughtful, like the story inside. Her had to settle before it could move. The city hadn't changed. Buses still roared down wet roads. People still rushed across sidewalks like they were late for something. But inside her, something had shifted. Her grief wasn't gone. It never would be. But now it had shape. It had story. And for the first time since her brother's funeral, she felt like maybe she could speak again without breaking. She didn't go home. Instead, she walked to a quiet park nearby, the kind of place where benches always seemed half asleep. She sat under a tree, opened her notebook, and tore out the last letter she'd written. She folded it carefully. Then she pulled out her phone, not to post, not to record, just to look. She searched for the name of a charity someone once mentioned. In a comment under a Keanu interview, it was a small one, helped kids who had lost parents. She wrote an email to the director. No details, it's just a question. "Can I read a letter to the kids sometime?" Just once. She hit send. Then she breathed. Days passed. Then a reply came. Yes, she returned to the bookstore. She didn't know why. Maybe she hoped the old man would be there again. Maybe she needed to thank him one more time. But when she walked in, the chair was empty. No coat. No tea. No notebook. Just the same warm lamps. And one envelope on the table. Her name was written on the front. Not typed. Not fancy. Just her first name. In a shaky handwriting, she opened it slowly. Inside was a single page. Some stories are meant to be passed on, not kept. You're ready now. Tell it how it happened. Tell it how it felt. Tell it with care. You don't need a platform. You just need one heart to listen. That's where all the change begins. There was no signature, but she knew who it was from. She sat down in the empty chair, and for a while, she just sat. Quiet. Grounded. Steady. Like someone who wasn't running anymore. The next week, she stood in front of 10 children. Most of them were younger than 10. Some had lost mothers, others fathers. One boy had lost both. They didn't fidget. They didn't talk. Just watched her waiting. Their eyes were open in that way only children's eyes can be unfiltered. Honest, she told them about a boy who once sat silently beside a hospital bed for 32 nights. She didn't say his name. She didn't need to. She told them about presence, about kindness, about how sometimes showing up is the bravest thing we do. She read her letter. Her hands didn't shake this time. Her voice didn't crack until the last line. "And even when you think no one is there," she said softly, "someone like him might be." A girl with glasses raised her hand. "Is it real?" The woman nodded. "Every word?" another boy asked. "Is he still around?" She smiled. "Yes, he's out there. Maybe closer than we think." The children clapped. Not loud, not wild. Just enough to say they felt it. Afterward, the director came up to her. "We'd love to have you again." She nodded. "I'd love that." As she walked out of the building, a thought came to her. No one had recorded it. No one had posted it. No views, no comments, no applause. But she had whispered the story, and the right hearts had heard that night. Back in her apartment, she lit a candle beside the photo the old man had given her. She stared at it for a long time, not to analyze it, not to question it. Just to remember, she wrote a new letter. This time it wasn't to Keanu, or to her brother. It was to the stranger in the bookstore. "You helped me find my voice again," she wrote. "I will carry this forward, I promise." She folded the letter and placed it inside her notebook, and then she whispered something she hadn't said in a long, long time. "Thank you." Meanwhile, across the city, in a quiet part of town, a man sat on his porch. The streetlights flickered. His dog lay beside him. He wore an old jacket, and in his hand was a copy of a notebook page, sent anonymously. The words familiar, the handwriting new. He read it once, and folded it slowly. He looked up at the stars, and he smiled. The months passed gently, like leaves floating downstream. The young woman didn't return to her old life. Not really. Something in her had changed, and this change wasn't temporary. It was a kind of quiet courage she had never known she was. Capable of... The fear that once held her voice hostage had lessened. She was still grieving, yes. But now grief was something she walked with, not something she was trapped inside every week. She returned to the community center. She didn't always read letters. Sometimes she just sat with the kids and listened to them talk about their parents, their fears, their dreams. One boy told her he wanted to build houses when he grew up. Another said she wanted to paint a mural of her mother on a big wall in the city. A small girl said nothing for weeks, then, one day, handed her a drawing of a man with kind eyes holding a candle. "Who is it?" she asked. The girl pointed to the sky. "He watches people," she whispered, "and helps them feel safe." That night, the woman cried again. Not from pain, but from how much beauty lives in quiet things. But something else began to happen too. One evening after her session with the kids, the director approached her with an envelope. "This came for you," she said, curious. No return address. Inside was a letter, handwritten, the penmanship neat, slow. "I heard what you're doing. Thank you for telling the story, for keeping it real. Your voice matters. Stories like this are rare, and you're carrying it well. Keep going." There was no name, no signature, but she knew. She read the letter 5 times, folded it carefully, and placed it next to the photo of Keanu in her drawer. It became a ritual. When the days were hard, when the grief returned without warning, she would open the drawer, look at the photo, read the letter, and remind herself that what she was doing mattered. The bookstore remained her quiet place. She still returned every Sunday. Though the old man never reappeared, the memory of him sat in the chair across from her every time. She left notes on the table, just in case he came back. Sometimes simple messages: "I told the story again today." Or the girl with the drawing smiled this time. But one Sunday morning, she found something waiting. A key, no note, no label. Just a small key placed where his book once sat. She turned it over in her palm, puzzled, curious. On a hunch, she asked the bookstore owner if the key meant anything. The woman behind the counter smiled. "He left that for you," she said, asked. "Me to give it to you, if you ever looked ready." "Ready for what?" she asked. The owner handed her a folded piece of paper. It only an address, a small building. Outside the city a few days later, she went. It was a quiet place. Almost forgotten, The kind of building time had passed by. Vines crept up one side. The paint was peeling. A single door, lock that fit her keyed inside. The air smelled of wood and aged dust. Silence, but the room was alive in its own way. A single table sat in the center. Stacks of old journals lined the shelves. Faded photos, notebooks, letters, and a box. She opened the box slowly. Inside were dozens of stories, all handwritten, all true. Each one titled with a date and a single name. June 14, Maria. November 3rd, Devon. August 5, Jordan, and many more. Each story was about someone who had done something kind, not loud kindness, quiet kindness, the kind you almost miss. If you're not paying attention, a note sat on top. These are the stories. That never made the news. The ones that never got applause, but they changed someone's world. Your story belongs here too. So will others. Keep the room open. Keep the light on. Let them come. She sat down at the table. She opened her notebook and began to write. This time, not just her story, but the stories she had heard from the children, from people she met, from the old man, from her own pain, from her own hope, and week after week, more people came. Someone who had helped a stranger with groceries and never spoke of it again. Someone who forgave a father after 20 years of silence. Someone who sat beside a hospital bed until the last breath thought the room filled, not with noise, but with meaning. On the wall above the shelves, she placed a single. It was his. Kindness isn't a performance, it's a promise. Like she'd never heard from the old man again. But sometimes, on quiet nights, she could swear she heard the bookstore bell jingle in her memory, and that was enough. The room had become more than just a space. It was a living memory, a place where kindness breathed without needing permission. Every journal, every letter, every quiet entry stacked on the shelves was a piece of someone's heart, offered without pride, without reward. The young woman had become its keeper, not by choice, but by grace. And as the year passed, the story began to spread. Not because she shouted it, not because she posted it, but because those who visited the room carried it. Gently with them into the world, one day a teacher left with 3 journals. She returned a month later with notes from her students. Each one had written about a stranger who had helped them once. A barista, a neighbor, an old woman on a train. One student wrote about a man who picked up his books when he fell and didn't ask for a thank you. Another visitor, an elderly man, read a story titled August 15, Grace. Tears fell down his cheeks. He didn't say anything, just left a rose on the table and walked out. She never saw him again. Every Sunday, she returned to the bookstore first, just to sit in the chair where it all began. The old man never came back, but she kept bringing 2 slices of cake anyway. One always stayed untouched, until one Datha. Chair wasn't empty. She stepped in and there he was. Older, somehow thinner, but the same soft presence. The same warm eyes. She didn't speak. Neither did he. They just looked at each other for a long moment, like silence itself had been waiting for them to meet again. He pointed to the cake. Chocolate? She smiled. Always. They sat, like they'd never stopped sitting. After a while, she said, I kept the room open. He nodded. I know. How? He pulled a folded letter from his pocket. I've been reading every story you send, even the ones you think you forgot to mail. She laughed through her tears. Why didn't you come back? He looked out the window and back at her. Because some gardens need space to grow, he said, and you grew beautifully. They didn't talk much after that. Didn't need to. When he stood up to leave, he pressed a note into her hand. You'll know when to read it, he said. Then he was gone. She waited 3 weeks before opening. The day she chose was quiet, overcast, a soft breeze through the window. She sat in the kindness room, the sun just beginning to set, and opened the note with steady hands. It read, If you're reading this, it means you've become what the world rarely sees. Not just a listener, but a keeper. Not just a keeper, but a giver. Not just a giver, but a believer. Somewhere out there, someone you don't know, is surviving because of something you whispered. You may never meet them, but they are real. On my birthday, the world always celebrates what I've done. But you carried the part no one saw. Da-da-da-da-da. The part no camera ever caught. Thank you for making it louder. Thank you for whispering it right. You were never alone. You still aren't. No signature. She didn't need one. And that night, for the first time in a long time, she lit a candle and smiled, not for what had been lost, but for what had been passed on. In another part of the city, a man sat quietly at the back of a small community center. A young boy stood on stage reading a letter. It was short. I want to be like him. The man who helped people without needing to be seen. I think his name was Keanu, but even if it wasn't, I still want to be like him. The audience clapped softly. The man smiled. And outside, the world kept rushing past. But inside that room, in the room filled with journals, in the bookstore with the faded sign, something stronger than fame lived on. Not a name, not a face, but a promise. And every time someone sat beside someone else in silence, ... Every time someone whispered a story worth carrying, ... Every time someone showed up when no one clapped, ... He was there. And kindness began again.